College football week 10, 2023. We're going over it today. Hey, I'm Brian Knight. I'm not Bobby Durkins, at least not here. If you're brand new, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications. It's all free and it helps out the channel, and I really do appreciate it. So, up to this point, we went from week 0 through week 9. There's already been a lot of big games. Alabama, Texas, Notre Dame plays 2 big games up to this point. Of course, Tennessee, Florida. We had the potential revenge game for Tennessee and South Carolina. There a lot of football. And I know somebody's like, you missed a game. Yeah, like a bunch of them. There's a lot of big games that's happened up to this point. So it's really, at this time, you have a pretty good idea of who's good, who's really good, and then who was just inflated as a really good football team to sell subscriptions to magazines, to websites, and to keep viewers engaged. So at this time, if someone is terrible, they've probably been exposed. So let's dive right in. Of course, I'm going to drop in the link here to fbsschedules.com. I'm not an affiliate for them, but I do use this. And feel free to use it. It's in the comments section. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to dive right in. Now, this will be like the 3rd or 4th week in a row that the college football world has a game on Tuesday night. So that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. So I'm really bad at talking and doing 2 things at one time. So here's week 10. Before I go any farther, Tiger Paul Craven, what's up, man? It's good to see you, pal. I had a great video with Tiger Paul Craven and Jordan Bowman. They are running the voice of college football for Clemson football for the incredible Mark Rogers. So go check out that video. And if you haven't subscribed to them, please go check them out, subscribe to them, and tell them that you heard about them from me. And we got Ridge Runner in here. Hello, Brian. What about our losses on the O-line recruits? We'll try to get to that here in just a moment. Parker Henderson, my old buddy. It's good to see you, pal. So let's dive right into the schedule. And I'll go ahead and tell everyone, I right now, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to say about the whole Pat Fitzgerald thing. I will do a video on that maybe. But I'm always gun shy to talk about some of that stuff. Mayhem, Matthew, and Athens Tiger, it's good to see y'all. So let's dive right into the schedule. So as I said, this is like the 3rd or 4th week in a row at this point that college football has a game on a Tuesday night. Now, these are not games that anyone's really excited about unless you're a fan of the team. But it's still college football. And right now on July the 11th, that's the day I'm shooting this video, this live stream, I would sit down and watch Buffalo and Toledo. Why? Because I am desperate for college football. But on Halloween night, you're probably not going to go out of your way if you have something going on, because you're well into the college football season, but you do have a few games there. The very next night is Wednesday night, November the 1st. By the way, my 41st birthday. Yeah, I know. I celebrated the Big 4-0 last year. 2 more games that feature teams that really nobody cares about. Now, Thursday night, November the 2nd, we can kind of change that a little bit. TCU and Texas Tech. Texas Tech's supposed to be better this year. They're receiving a lot of preseason. Now, when I say hype, I'm just saying it's top 25 hype. Hey, this team is going to be a decent team. They do play in the Big 12, or what's left of the Big 12. So you always have to take that with a grain of salt. We saw what happened to TCU in the national championship against Georgia. TCU, here they're preseason 16. We'll see if that's actually real by this time. But that will be an interesting game, and it'll be a Thursday night. Of course, Wake Forest and Duke, nothing to write home about there. Friday night, Boston College, Syracuse, Colorado State, and Wyoming. Those are not big games. So we get into Saturday, November the 4th. This is a big day, folks. And if you know, you know. And if you don't, you're about to find out. So you see a game like Army and Air Force being played. That's not a big game. The only thing about Army, and I've been bringing them up a lot, is they are no longer running option football. They have changed their offense for the first time, in ever. They're going to be going shotgun formation. It'll be interesting to see them making that transition. We know what happened to Georgia Tech when they made that transition. It looked like a middle school team playing football. You know it. I know it. We all know it. Not really exciting for Georgia Tech, but that's an interesting game. Now I'll go on down, but the big game, you'll know in just a second as soon as you see it, especially as Clemson fans. But Miami and NC State, not a big game. Interesting conference game. Georgia Tech, Virginia, not a big game. Now, Kansas State and Texas. By this time of the year, we will know whether Texas is for real or if they are what they always are, overrated. Oh, they have so much talent. Yep, they have a lot of talent. They've had a lot of talent for a long time. We'll see if they actually use it. Kansas State, a top 20 team. I think they would have done TCU a favor had they beat them in the Big 12 championship. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State that day. That's a big one. If you're going on down, you see Washington at USC. Now, of course, we really don't care about the Pac. But that is a good game with Michael Penix Jr., of course, Caleb Williams. This game has upset written all over it for USC. Now, let's be honest with ourselves. If Washington was to win the game, it wouldn't be like a Cinderella upset, like an Appalachian State beating Texas A&M. Even though A&M was bad last year, they had a lot of talent, and Appalachian State ended up not being nearly as potent as everybody thought they were going to be. So we're sliding down through here, and we're seeing a bunch of games that, they're blah. Florida State and Pitt, what a sleeper. I mean, what a flipping sleeper. Now, that UTS game at not North Texas, the Tulane game at East Carolina, that would be a fun one. East Carolina is about 4.5 hours from where I live. And see Tulane play football, that would be fantastic. I think that Tulane is getting a little grace there because of last season. But they did lose a solid amount of talent from that team who did amazing things last year. Kentucky and Mississippi State. This is really interesting for me because Kentucky over the past 4 or 5 years, they have really, and off and on in the past 10 years, to maybe even beyond that, Kentucky is a team that we're consistently told they're a good football team. They're a good football team. And they'll go and they'll be like 4-0, 5-0. They're rated top 12, maybe sneak into the top 10. And then they lose like 3 or 4 games. One of them getting shellacked. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mississippi State won this game, but who knows? Now, people, we can wake up from all these crazy sleepy games. This will probably be your CBS 3:30 game on a Saturday. LSU at Alabama. Does LSU come into this game undefeated? I mean, this could be a playoff national championship contender, paving the way for the rest of the country to know who is who in the SEC, especially the SEC West. That'll be an interesting game. That'll be a very interesting game. And there we go. Notre Dame at Clemson. Now, Clemson went up to Notre Dame last year. Notre Dame was not overwhelming, but by any stretch of the imagination. They lost to Marshall. They lost to Stanford. And they beat Clemson by 3 touchdowns. I believe it was Nick Eason, former Clemson great and now positions coach and one of the best recruiters in the game, went to Dabo Swinney and said in some form, you've got to fix your offense. That game proved it. Thank you, Nick. You spoke for the rest of the Clemson family. I appreciate it. That's going to be a revenge game. The last 2 times that Clemson has played Notre Dame in the regular season, Notre Dame has won. So Notre Dame won last year 35-14. Go back to 2020 when somebody had the sniffles and suddenly they were testing positive for that thing that shut down the country, shut down the world. Trevor Lawrence didn't play that game. That was the game that probably gave us more false hope about DJ than any other game. That was the game. That was the game that gave us all the belief that DJ was the second coming, but actually the third coming. Deshaun, Trevor, and we thought DJ. Well, that's what we get for thank you, right? But they lost that game that night. You remember what? Double overtime. South Bend night. But now Notre Dame comes to Clemson. You know that's going to be a night game. According to this, it's going to be on ABC. That game is going to be rocking. The tickets for this is already outrageous. It's nuts. I mean, the tickets to this is going to be unflipping believable. The prices will be a joke. But that's the game that Clemson's looking forward to. We want revenge. There's 2 teams that we majorly want revenge. Notre Dame, and then with the new offensive coordinator, who hopefully will not stop what is working. Who will not go, you know what, we're running the ball down South Carolina's throat. Why don't we just keep doing that and win the game? No. I've told you this. My oldest is a South Carolina Gamecock fan. He and I went to the game. He looked at me, he goes, why did you stop running the football? I said, because we wanted to lose. Somebody wanted to lose on that coaching staff. But those are the 2 revenge games. Notre Dame and Clemson. So after all those sleeper games, now you get to LSU and Alabama. You get to Notre Dame and Clemson. But I'll point out a game to you, and I'm not calling it an upset special or whatsoever, but last year, Missouri played Georgia so well, it was ridiculous. Considering who Missouri is, Missouri at Georgia, and Georgia's probably going to light them up just for me saying that. Texas A&M and Ole Miss. A&M, there is a fire that is lit down there, and I'm surprised it hasn't bit Fisher. And I know somebody, and I see this all the time in the comments section. It's according to what school you're talking about. You're referencing if their donors can actually buy out the contract. Now, if we were talking about Wake Forest, if we were talking about some obscure school trying to buy out an $80 million, $75 million contract would be a problem. Texas A&M, University of Texas, places like that, that's chump change for them. So A&M, I wonder about at this time if Fisher has absolutely, I mean, just at this point, he's underperformed. Now, I want you to hear me say this. If he has underperformed at this point, he may not even be the coach at this time. I want you to hear that. That if Jimbo Fisher has laid another golden turd and we get to November the 4th, he might very well not be the head coach at Ole Miss. Or not Ole Miss, at Texas A&M by the Ole Miss game. Kind of wonder if some of the new is wearing off of Lane as well. I'm not saying they're ready to get rid of him. I'm just saying, where are things going with Ole Miss? Now, that's a game that has upset written on it. Arizona State and Utah. That sounds like a game that Utah would blow. It really, really does. And then California at Oregon, that's another game that sounds like an upset. You know, they could be a top 10 team in contention for the college football playoff. And what do? They blow it. I mean, it's just crazy. But that week has a lot of boring games. I mean, Jacksonville State and South Carolina, Campbell at North Carolina. I mean, who cares? I mean, who cares about a lot of these games? But then you get down here and you have two really good games that could have, according to how they do up to this point, could have a playoff potential type of result that a lot of people would be paying attention to. It's going to be interesting to see Notre Dame and Clemson. RR says, well, at least you'll get revenge against South Carolina. You'd never know that RR is a Notre Dame fan. You'd never know that. It's just so hidden there. You'd never know that they're a Notre Dame fan. Well, folks, this concludes the Week 10 preview of college football 2023. Remember, there is 15 weeks in college football, so we're getting very close to the end of the season. And I challenge you, and I threw the link in there for you to be able to save it, but the FBSschedules.com, you can check those out. You can also check out FCS and then other sports, but that may not be your thing. Most of the time, it's not my thing. I just care about college football. But the season at this point will have matured. And I know I beat this drum all the time, but I'm telling you, it's just really, really interesting to see, even by week 6, who was inflated, who was pumped up, who was, they're just trying to get other markets to watch them play football and blah, 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 blah. That's great and that's fine. But the rest of us, we can actually be smart and use our brain and not our emotions. I mean, I'm not sold on Florida State, folks. I think that they're a good football team. They finished 10-3 last year, but I'm not sold on Florida State. I'm not sold on Texas. Penn State is all fluffed up right now. I mean, Washington, some people has them top 10. Do you really see Washington being a top 10 football team right now? Well, I do, because Michael Penix, y'all, I've seen this before. I've seen this tap dance before. And then they get into a big game, and you know what happens? They get their head ripped off. And the whole time you're sitting there watching it, all of a sudden your senses come back to you. You go, I should have just used my logic and not whatever I was thinking with. So by this time of the season, we will know who's who. And I'm hoping, for my Tigers' sake, that we'll definitely have things pulled together. The line on both sides is playing well. We're winning the trenches. Klubnik is looking good, hopefully. I believe we're going to run the ball well, whether we want to or not, just because of the four-headed monster we have there. I think the defense is going to be much better. And I believe that than what we think. Losing Simpson, Brisset, and Miles Murphy, people are going to sleep on Clemson's defense. They're going to think, oh, man, they lost those 3 big players, so the cupboard is barren. They're going to take them lightly, and there's a great chance that we might actually come in and dominate some games that people are shocked that the defense is as dominant as it is. Parker said FSU has a decent team. Now they think they're back. If I'm Mike Norvell, I agree with you. If I'm Mike Norvell, I'm downplaying everything. I'm telling the guys it's okay to be excited, but you have to prove it on the field. And he probably is, but I'm just saying I would not want to hear they're back. They're back. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. When what's his face from Texas said, we're back. That was what, one coach ago? I mean, but teams like that will either prove that they're back, and I don't think Florida State is. I think they're a good football team. You're going to have to play a really good game to beat them. Clemson's not going to go in and beat them by 50 points. But what I'm saying is the Florida State of old is not back yet. And they're going to have to prove that they are. So, well, folks, thanks for joining me. Hit the subscribe button. I say that all the time, and it does support the channel. And also hit that notification and thumbs up. Everybody, I'll catch you next time. You take care of yourself. And we will be talking about Week 11 on the next video. Take care.